Hey there, Smite fans, and welcome back to another prediction video. This one's going to be covering the SPL Week 5. This is the last week on the schedule, I think the last week before the LAN, and right now I'm going to go ahead and tell you, these teams are all over the place. The talent pool is so varied. It is just so good right now as well that everyone has been having a really strong performance. Some teams not quite as much as others, but we'll be getting into that as we go through this week's matches, and really the first one up. Not looking to be anything that's crazy out of the ordinary, but not looking to be anything too weak either. We have Obey versus Rival. So for those who don't know, Cyclone just dropped their sponsor. The team dropped the sponsor and has now been relocated under the Rival, Team Rival, the same team that you might recognize from the console league. And right now their first match, and this is going to be a rough week for them, but the first one they have to go through is going to be Obey. And Obey... Let's just put it where it is. Obey is the best team in Europe right now. The fact that they were able to get a 2-0 over Valence last week, and the fact that they have been able to get a 2-0 over Dig, they've been able to 2-0 NRG, they are sitting at the top. The only teams that could really be contending with them have been taken down by them, and because of that, this should be an easy 2-0 for Obey over Rival. It just doesn't seem like Rival is going to be able to have what it takes. I mean, ultimately, they could put up a fight, but I just see Obey closing this one out. Now, the next one's also going to be a relatively easy one to kind of sit down and look at, just because even if you say both of these teams are not doing well in score terms, when you look at the 0-10 under Sanguine's belt, and of course when you look at the wins that Elevate has picked up, I mean, they have taken a game off Obey, they have taken a game off of Valence, they've taken a game off of they did not take a game off NRG, but they looked really good when they were fighting them, and they did take a game off of Dig as well, and I have a strong feeling they're going to be able to take 2 games here because Sanguine is not the same caliber of team as those others that were mentioned just now, and because of that, I'm going to be going for a 2-0 in favor of Elevate. Now, this one's going to be a really interesting matchup to watch. EUnited versus Luminosity. So, Luminosity, lately, they have hit or misses. They're 8-2. They've been playing really strong. The same thing kind of goes for Enemy. They will have a weak game and then a strong game. And I actually think that both of these teams are going to be very close in skill. It kind of depends on which enemy shows up, but if it's the same one that we've been seeing in the last couple weeks, the same EUnited, that's going to be making the biggest difference. And honestly, I think this one might come down as a split, just because both of these teams have really been fighting well together. They've been doing a lot of work, and I expect to see them kind of go toe-to-toe with each other. And this one's going to be a hard one. Now, again, if you look at the lines, 6-4 versus 3-7, most of the time you go for the 6-4, but Soar has looked phenomenal. Last week they actually came out of nowhere. Picking up Fine OK was probably one of the best things they could have done, and honestly, I think that's going to give them a little bit of a leg up. I don't think they have the full advantage to be able to take a 2-0 in this set against Gabe because Gabe is very strong, but I think Gabe is still trying to learn together as a team, still trying to come together wholly, and because of that, I fully expect to see this one come down as a split. I think the pickup of Fine OK makes Soar strong enough that they should be able to find their 4th win, although it's going to be now 4-8 instead of 3-7, but they're going to be able to take a split down with Memory of Gabe. Going into Saturday's matches again, Lion Guard, they're a strong team, they've been playing well, but there's one thing that comes down to it, and that's the fact that Obey has 2-0'd, again, all the top teams. They have taken down anybody who is going to be looking to try and hurt them. The only team that was really caught by surprise was Elevate, and I expect to see maybe something kind of similar from Lion Guard. They might be able to get maybe some picks, maybe some objectives really out of the game, but I don't expect to see them take a win. I expect to see Obey come out of this one with another 2-0. Now, every week I always say this one's going to be the match of the week. This one is going to be this week's match of the week just because Valence squad versus Dignitas. Both of them at 8-4, both of them insanely strong, and kind of a rivalry between the two, considering most of the members comprising these two teams used to be on a team together. So having that in mind, how will they do? How will they fare up? Honestly, this is one of those matchups that could really go either way. Both teams have potential to 2-0, and really both teams have the potential to split. It kind of comes down the middle that if you had to just choose with 3 options, it becomes 33% all across the board. If you vote 2-0 for Dig, it's just as likely to see a 2-0 for Valence. And honestly, I think they're going to go toe-to-toe. I think they're going to be coming down as a split just because these teams, they're so close together. I expect to see a really good matchup. That's one of the games you do not want to miss. It's going to be some great Smite played right there. Now again, when you're looking at the number lines, 4-6, 4-6, when you see Rival versus Elevate, normally you kind of fall up who's going to be who's going to do what. Elevate, again, most of the wins they have been up against top teams, and Rival, a lot of their wins have not. A lot of their losses have been ticked up from those top teams, and I expect to see Elevate kind of be able to pick apart Rival. I think this one's going to be a lot closer of a matchup overall than we're going to see the earlier matchup that Rival has to go against, up against Obey. But for Elevate, this one should be another 2-0 for them. This should actually be able to kind of help bring them back in the ranks. And this one, I feel like, doesn't need as much analysis as any other game. Sanguine 0-10, not looking really like a team right now, going to be falling apart, I expect. Maybe refactoring, losing some members, changing some things up after this split, and right now NRG should be able to take this one in an easy 2-0. So I'm going to admit, this one, Sunday's games, I mean, they're looking good. This one's probably going to be another great set of Smite. Not quite at the same level of Valence versus Dignitas, but it's going to be very fun to watch because Soar, again, 7 losses under Soar's belt. 1 of those was last week. The other 6 were in the first 3 weeks. 3 wins, though. All of them picked up last week. All of them kind of showing that Fine OK, again, has been incorporated into the team. They're playing a lot better. I think this is actually a huge key for them overall. But they're going against Noble, and Noble is in this weird position where sometimes they're doing great and sometimes they're not coming up to performance. Last week, they looked like going into last week, they looked like they were going to be this insanely strong team, and then they ended up getting 2-0'd by Eager. And while Eager is definitely a really strong team, it was one of those, Noble was taking games off of some of the teams everyone thought was vying for first place or second place, and then all of a sudden they're not playing up to that level anymore, and because of that I actually think Soar has a chance here. It could entirely go in favor of Noble, but I think this is going to be a split. Noble, again, the kings of comeback in Game 2, should be able to find that second game, but Soar looking so much stronger than they were before, I think this one's going to come down as a split. Flashpoint, they were able to find their first 2 wins a little while ago, but it hasn't really been looking good for them so far. And honestly, Allegiance on the other side has been looking to get a little bit better. They've been coming into their own, and while they're not performing perfectly, they're still performing better than Flashpoint. Sometimes I might want to look at this as a split depending on the picks and bans, and I think that's going to be one of these matchups that really does come down to who can draft better overall, and I think Allegiance actually comes out of that on top. I still think Flashpoint fully isn't playing as a team, so overall I expect Allegiance to be able to come out of this one on top with a 2-0. It could be a split, but I think it's more like a 60-40, and I'm going to be leaning towards Allegiance. Again, another great set of Smite coming up right here. Memory of Gabe versus EUnited on this other side. And this one's going to be wonky, just because when it comes down to it, both of these teams have had great moments and both of these teams have had poor moments. Enemy, honestly, when Panda Cat shows up, the team does great. When Panda Cat doesn't show up, it tends to falter. But that being said, they've been playing a lot better lately. They've been kind of able to rally. Again, LG and Gabe were able to split last week. Earlier, I expect to see EUnited and LG split, and I actually kind of expect the same thing to come out of this one. I think they're both going to be some great games, but overall, I think they're both not weak enough to drop 2 games. I think they're both going to be able to take a game as well and kind of adapt, especially Enemy. They're very good at the adaptation, whereas Memory of Gabe are very good in that first game, so I expect to see this one kind of fall as a split. Again, this is another scenario where really either anything could come out of it, but ultimately, I expect to see a split just based on how these 2 teams have been playing in the last couple weeks. And then the last matchup, and this is going to be one of the best ones to watch as well. Sunday's looking good, as well as Saturday and Thursday. I mean, all days. SPL's looking great this week. Whereas we're going to be seeing Eager versus Luminosity. Now, this one's going to be a doozy of a game for both of these teams. They're both going to have to try really hard. Ultimately, I'm going to be leaning towards Eager in favor of them as a 2-0 just because they have been looking very strong lately. They've been coming together. And of course, being able to stay together as a team has definitely given them that leg up, not having to have anyone new. And ultimately, I think Luminosity's weak point is exactly where we're going to see Eager kind of focus them down. And it's still in that mid lane. Just because Baskin is a great player, he still hasn't fully adapted yet. And I expect to see Eager be able to kind of come out on top of this. It's going to be a rough 2-0 for him. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a walk through the park. It's going to be a rough set because I think LG is going to be able to kind of keep themselves up. Luminosity should be able to take all of the punches Eager throws and throw them back equally, if not harder. But for the most part, Eager as a team having that synergy already ultimately should bring them out overall, and I think they're going to be able to take this one as a 2-0 and in the week off great. And really right now, just as a quick recap for this week, Obey taking a 2-0 over Rival, Elevate going to be taking a 2-0 over Sanguine. EUnited and Luminosity should be splitting. Right now we're going to be looking at Soar and Gabe taking a split as well. That's going to be a great set to watch. Make sure you do not miss the latter half of Thursday. Those are going to be some great games. Moving into Saturday, though, Obey should be able to take a 2-0 over Lion Guard. Valence and Dignitas should come down as a split. Elevate should be able to 2-0 Rival, and NRG is definitely going to be able to 2-0 Sanguine. Then a split for Soar versus Noble, because Soar is looking a lot better and Noble kind of shaky in their execution last week. I expect to see them come out with that second game, but the first game should be going to Soar. Allegiance should be able to 2-0 Flashpoint, but it could also be a split between the two teams. It's really whatever you're feeling. Flashpoint might be able to find a game, but ultimately I believe in Allegiance. EUnited versus Gabe, I expect to see this one become a split just because, again, both these teams are very close. Both these teams have put a lot of work into themselves over these last couple weeks, and I expect to see them kind of come out on top. With LG and Gabe splitting last week and me thinking EUnited should be able to split with LG this week, I expect to see Gabe kind of put up toe-to-toe with EUnited, and I expect to see this one come out as a split. And the last one, Eager should be able to find the 2-0 over LG. Of course, LG full of surprises, and I expect them to be working hard, so it is possible that they might be able to come out and take a game, especially through picks and bans if they are just able to outdraft Eager. But ultimately, I see Eager being able to take this one. They're just so far a little bit of a stronger team. And that's going to be it for this week and for the SPL for a little bit, as far as I can tell, just based on the schedule. Week 6 is going to be the last one for a little while. I would once again just like to thank you guys for watching, especially if you've watched all of these videos that have come out so far. Expect more in the future once it starts getting updated, and honestly, just keep your eyes open. This week should be great. But with that, my name is Gormizer, and I will talk to you guys in the next prediction video.